I was just as shocked as the rest of you when I found out that Stephen King has a movie that has 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, we know Rotten Tomatoes is kind of uppity and prestigious, and a lot of times their analysis for movies is more cold-hearted than it is compassionate and sentimental. We grew up with such great movies, and look at the scores at some of these. The last week of September is September, and we gotta wrap up with a banger. So does this movie hit as hard as I hope it does, or does it really deserve a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes? Let's find out. What up, y'all? Welcome back to Phantom of the Indie Review. I am your host, Not Crew Ratty, and today we are talking about a little movie called Graveyard Shift. I have very low expectations for this, but one of the biggest saving graces for me is that Brad Dourif is in it, the master, the horror icon himself, voices Chucky. I think it might be good. We are chasing after our goal of 4,000 subscribers by Halloween. If you want to move to a small, creepy town in Maine and work at a paper mill with me, then come hang out. Graveyard Shift came during a time where right before there was masterpieces such as Stand By Me and dystopian action cult classic The Running Man, and then right after that followed with Misery and the It miniseries, which are highly regarded. So I can't scold this movie too bad if it ends up being horrible, because it came out just within a few years of great movies. But when you see a movie that has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, you get kind of skeptical. The premise of this movie follows a drifter named John Hall goes to a small sleepy town in Maine where he works by himself at an old rat-infested textile mill across from an abandoned graveyard. I will say that the second this movie starts with the introduction scene alone, do you ever have a movie growing up that like you can't quite remember what the scene came from, but there's a movie that's always in your head? You're like, where did that come from? This dude is working at the mill before John gets hired there, and he's working by himself, filling up like this machine that makes like cotton or something. I don't know exactly what it does. We get an introduction that this movie is a little bit supernatural when he gets attacked by this giant evil creature in the shadows. We don't quite see what it is, but the rats around him are scared. This place is infested with rats, like I said, so they're like chilling until he gets attacked and he gets pushed into the machine and gets like crunched up and grinded. And I remember specifically when that scene came on, I was like, I remember this from my childhood. I watched it at my dad's house. I never knew what the movie was, but I specifically remember that scene. The reason I was looking forward to this movie the most, even though it's a cameo appearance, Brad Dourif, we know and love him, he voices Chucky from Child's Play. He's in it, and I was really excited for that. He plays an exterminator named Tucker Cleveland, and I knew right off the bat that he wasn't going to be the vocal point of the movie. Oftentimes when celebrities are in movies in the past, they become more famous and garner attention, so they get hit on the poster for marketing, especially like retroactively. Like a movie will come out and they'll be like, hey, this guy was in that movie, he's the main character, and he's not. But I expected a better performance from him. So John Hall is working at this textile mill. He comes into town and nobody messes with him. They're all immature old redneck fucks who are like, new guy in town, what a dork, am I right? Throwing like sausages at him. It's like, yeah, this is the 90s. And the foreman, owner, boss of the mill, his name is Warwick. He's just a creep. Every time you watch a Stephen King movie, they oftentimes implement a bad guy. But if I had to write a list right now, if I had to rank every single antagonist in Stephen King's movie franchise movie list, I'd probably give Warwick the worst ever. Like, he's supposed to be like this typical creepy, stubborn Maine local, and I swear to you, the first 5 minutes he was talking, I had no idea he was doing a Maine accent. And I'm from New England. Like, instead of being like, if you want to work hard and come down to the mill, I'll get you a job, eh? Or something like that. So mine's not the best, but he literally sounded like an Indian man mixed with a British person. He was like, oh, you won't come down to the mill, eh? You won't fall away here. I was like, I didn't have the subtitles on. I didn't know what he was saying. And Brad Dourif's character disappointed me too, playing Tucker Cleveland the Exterminator. I thought he was going to at least have a couple cool scenes, but he pretty much has one giant like 8-minute monologue where he's talking to John Hall about rats. And like, you don't even know what he's saying. It's so dramatic and over the top, like a lot of the acting in this movie is, but it's just like, what are you talking about, bro? Then he finished the monologue off by going, yeah. And I felt that. I was like, yeah. Like I said, Warwick is the bad guy, so he kind of, does all this wild stuff. He tries to like bang all the girls in town. He's just rude to his employees. Whenever he hears them like talking about him behind his back, he like punishes them and like makes them work shifts they don't want to work. So we know he's the bad guy. It starts to add up more and more as the movie progresses. And throughout the movie, we're getting snippets of this rat bat creature, whatever the supernatural entity is, by quick little, someone's alone at night and they're in the mill and you just see like a handful of times, and we're like, we get it, they're getting attacked by something, could you just show us what they're getting attacked by? But throughout those little pinpoints, the movie is just so drawn out, long, and tedious. Like, I kid you not, the first 45 minutes I was like, is anything gonna happen in this movie? It's one of those movies too where I'm not a professional filmmaker, but for someone that loves to make movies and loves cinematography, the only way I can explain it is that this movie feels hollow around it. Very low production, not even quality of the camera, just the bare bones music, not a lot of direction in the sceneries. But for what they lack in production, the actors certainly make up over the top. Every time there's like a scene where something a little bit annoying happens, they're like, they are conveying it. The acting is kind of good, but the movie sucks. I mean, it is what it is. Warwick takes his heel level up, where when one of the girls he's kind of flirting around with gets mad at him, so she keys his car and breaks in, bashes it to bits. He comes out and he goes to beat her in front of the whole town, and then John comes, he's like, we're not doing that, partner. So to get revenge on John, he signs him up for a night shift crew to work at the mill. Like I said, this mill is old, rat infested, and it's about to close down. The exterminator, he's trying to everything he can. An inspector came, he's like, yo, you gotta close down now, but Warwick bribes him with a few $100. He's like, give us through 4th of July weekend and we'll get it topsy-turvy. He gets a band of misfit workers to work on it. And right before the movie kind of kicks off, if you will, Brad Dourif, his character, goes into the abandoned graveyard across the street, and he's lurking through, and he gets brutally killed by accident. He like goes into a mausoleum and slips and gets like smushed by a tombstone, by like a grave or something, by like a big rock, and we see Warwick looking out the window being like, good. It's like, I don't know how he saw into that mausoleum. Like, I understand he's the villain, but not everything he does has to be suspicious and evil. John has had a hard time making friends throughout this entire time being in this small town, except for this one girl. I don't remember her character's name. They barely say any character's name in this movie. She's kind of the love interest, so she gets signed up to work the knock shift, the graveyard shift, with John and a few miscellaneous ragtag band of misfit workers, all helmed by Warwick himself. They're there to clean up for the weekend. They're all getting double paid though. Tensions start to rise high. There's this fat, annoying dude named Brogdon who's literally just edging the entire movie. He has like this giant hose just spraying. And then the other workers, you see them standing in the background, but they're not doing much other than a few scuffles. And again, that high dramatic acting. We see scenes where they're just so dramatically acting, and it's just insane. And I'm not trying to be a hater, guys. I know it seems like I'm jumping from bullet point to bullet point from this movie like I did the first 2 reviews, and I'm not doing that because I didn't like this movie. I'm doing it because that's exactly how the movie transpired. Even though it's long, drawn out, and boring, everything that I'm mentioning that's worth mentioning happens so fast in context, because in between there's like 10 minutes of nothing really interesting happening. So they start to clean up, and John finds an opening that goes underground that looks like a door, and John's like, dude, what if there's buried treasure under here? And in my mind, I was like, yo, what if there is, dude? I didn't realize this was a Goonies spinoff. I thought this was a movie about them about to get attacked by a giant rat. And then Warwick's like, we're going to go down and investigate. So they all go down, branch off, start to get picked off one by one. And this is a part that really annoys me. I was annoyed the whole movie, but again, like, when you have a character that's a villain and they're supposed to do the bad stuff, the stuff to make you mad at them, Warwick just does it irrationally. Like, he falls down like a chute of skeletons and like lands in a pit of bones. And John and the girl, like, I guess will help him, and they go down and like get him up, and he instantly starts like Tasmanian devil attacking them, and like he belligerently kills the girl with a knife for like no reason. He doesn't say anything, he just wakes up, he's like blah 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 blah, like starts fighting them. You're like, what are you hiding? Because they're not saying anything. We know that he's shady, we know that he paid off the inspector, we know that he doesn't like his workers, but what is he trying to fucking accomplish? And this movie happens so fast, goddamn paced, so fast paced, and he runs off down the little chute and he's like, I killed her, and John's like, oh, I'm gonna get you. And then Warwick gets down and he sees the giant creature, bat rat, mutated supernatural being, and he's like, time to dance in hell, motherfucker. Like, all of a sudden he wants to fight and kill this critter. It seemed like before, when people are getting picked off one by one and he saw it happening, he was fine with it. He's like, I'm the villain. And now all of a sudden he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and then obviously gets eaten alive by this creature. And then John comes along, crawls up a shaft, and gets back into the main mill, where he somehow traps and kills the main entity. And I kid you not, then the movie ends. Did that review seem chaotic to you? Please let me know, comment down below, because I really tried with this one. I mean, this movie was insanely bad. I mean, if you grew up with this movie and you were nostalgic with it and you just hear me talking bad about a movie you loved, I'm sorry. Comment down below and cuss me out down there. What's your favorite Stephen King movie? Let me know also in the comments. Sometimes Rotten Tomatoes will tell you a movie sucks and you're like, yeah, whatever, bud. You guys are just like jerks. But I feel like they were onto something, mainly because this movie was very drawn out and boring and lacked structure and cohesiveness in the script and in the filming. If I have to throw out a few bones and say something complimentary, I will say that when there are some kills, the blood and gore and gross factors are kind of disturbing and kind of cringeworthy looking. And I will say that the mill and the graveyard are kind of creepy areas. Like the set looked pretty cool and interesting. Every time they had a zoomed out shot of it, you got kind of eerie chills by it. But the rest of the movie was just dragged out and dull. So yeah, that was the review, guys. I hope you liked it. Subscribe, give me a thumber, hit that ding-a-ling button harassing you, telling you, hey, it's me, I'm here. And I'm gonna say it one time for the one time and two time for the O's. Give me a hell yeah for horror.
Yeah.